I was born in Dallas, Texas, the first son of my parents, Thomas and Karen. For the first few years of my life, I thought we were a normal, happy family. I remember chasing fireflies in our backyard, my mom singing along to the radio while she cooked, and my dad teaching me how to ride a bike on the cracked pavement of our cul-de-sac. But everything changed the moment my younger brother Ethan came into the world. From the day he was born, it felt like the sun rose and set on him. My parents acted as if he were some kind of miracle child, while I slowly became the background character in my own family. Ethan cried, he got rocked to sleep in my mom's arms. I cried, and I was told to stop being dramatic. Ethan got brand new clothes, matching little sneakers. I got hand-me-downs, even though I was older and nothing quite fit me right. The favoritism wasn't subtle, it was blatant. On Christmas morning, Ethan's pile of gifts towered over mine. He got the shiny new Game Boy Color, I got a sweater 2 sizes too big. When I asked why, my dad said, "You're the older one, Michael, you should understand." That phrase became the soundtrack of my childhood. School wasn't any different. When I brought home straight A's on my report card, my mom would glance at it, mumble, "Good job," and tack it onto the fridge without a second thought. When Ethan scraped by with B's and C's, they threw him a pizza night to celebrate his hard work. I learned quickly that excellence earned me nothing, while Ethan's mediocrity was treated like brilliance. The worst part wasn't even the unequal treatment. It was how they let Ethan treat me. He knew he was untouchable, and he wielded that power like a weapon. He'd take my toys and smash them, knowing my parents would never punish him. When he broke the window playing baseball inside the house, I got blamed for not keeping an eye on him. Once, he punched me hard in the stomach because I wouldn't give him my allowance money. I doubled over in pain, gasping for air, but when I told my mom, she said, "Don't be such a tattletale, Michael, he's just a kid." By the time I turned 16, the resentment had curdled into something darker. I had been saving for months to buy my first car, a rusty old Honda Civic from a neighbor. Every dollar I earned came from mowing lawns, bagging groceries, and scraping plates at a diner. It wasn't much, but it was mine. Ethan begged to borrow it one night to impress a girl. I told him no. My parents intervened, saying I should share with my brother. Against my better judgment, I handed over the keys. Hours later, I got a call. He had crashed my car while driving drunk. He was completely unharmed, of course. The car was totaled. And who did my parents blame? Me. "You should have stopped him, Michael. You're the responsible one." I'll never forget standing there, staring at the wreck of the only thing I had worked for, while Ethan shrugged and went inside to play video games. That was the story of my childhood. Ethan, the golden child, protected at all costs. Michael, the scapegoat, invisible until something went wrong. By the time I turned 18, I knew the truth. Nothing I did would ever be enough. My parents didn't see me as a son. They saw me as a buffer, a punching bag, a shadow next to Ethan's glow. And so, the day I left for college, I didn't cry. I didn't even look back. I carried one suitcase, a scholarship letter clutched in my hand, and the bitter knowledge that if I wanted a life worth living, I'd have to build it myself. Leaving Dallas felt like ripping off a chain I'd worn my whole life. When the Greyhound bus pulled out of the station, I stared out the window at the flat Texas horizon and swore to myself that I would never let Ethan, or my parents' warped version of love, define me again. All I had was a suitcase, $200 in savings, and a full scholarship to the University of Michigan. It wasn't much, but for me, it was freedom. The first few months were brutal. I didn't have the safety net other students had. While my roommate's parents sent care packages filled with snacks and gift cards, I stretched every dollar. Ramen noodles, part-time jobs, late nights studying under flickering dorm lights, that was my life. I cleaned tables at a diner from 8 p.m. to 2 a.m., then dragged myself to morning lectures half awake. But something shifted in me. For the first time, nobody was comparing me to Ethan. Nobody saw me as the screw-up older brother or the scapegoat. Professors knew me as Michael Carter, the kid who never missed class and always had his hand up. My boss at the diner knew me as the worker who never called in sick. My friends knew me as the guy who cracked tired jokes over midnight pizza. I was no one's shadow anymore.
I'll never forget the first time I felt truly proud of myself.
It was sophomore year, and I got invited to present a research paper at a regional economics conference. Standing at that podium, my hands shaking as I spoke into the microphone, I realized something. This is mine. Not given by parents, not stolen by Ethan, not dismissed or ignored. I had earned every ounce of it. My parents barely noticed. When I called home to tell them, my mom said, "That's nice, honey. Ethan just started a new business idea. He might finally make something of himself." I hung up the phone and stared at the ceiling for a long time. The old bitterness threatened to rise again, but I shoved it down. Their approval no longer mattered. By senior year, the hard work paid off. I graduated with honors in finance, clutching my diploma like it was a ticket to a new life. That summer, I got a job offer from a mid-sized firm on Wall Street. The salary wasn't glamorous, but to me, it was more than money. It was proof that I could outrun the weight of my family. I moved into a cramped studio in New York City, walls thin enough that I could hear my neighbor's TV at all hours. But I didn't care. Every morning, as I tied my cheap department store tie and stepped onto the subway, I felt something I had never felt in Dallas: possibility. That was my turning point. For the first time, I wasn't surviving, I was building. And for once, I allowed myself to believe that maybe, just maybe, I could have the life I had always been denied. New York City was chaotic, loud, and unforgiving. But for me, it felt like a rebirth. I was 22, working long hours at a Wall Street firm that barely paid enough to cover rent, but I didn't care. I was in the center of the world, far from Dallas, far from the house where I'd always been second best. My first apartment was a shoebox in Queens. The radiator clanked all winter, the paint peeled from the walls, and cockroaches were my unwanted roommates. But every time I collapsed onto the thin mattress after a 16-hour workday, I felt proud. Nobody had handed me this life. I had carved it out of stone with my own two hands. At work, I threw myself into everything. I wasn't the smartest guy in the room, but I was the hungriest. I stayed late, volunteered for extra projects, and made myself indispensable. Slowly, I climbed the ladder, earning the respect of colleagues who had Ivy League pedigrees and family connections I could never dream of. It was at a networking event of all places that I met Laura. I still remember the first time I saw her, standing near the bar, laughing at some joke I didn't hear, a glass of white wine in her hand. She was confident, sharp, and carried herself with the kind of grace that made the whole room fade. We started talking, and for once in my life, someone was interested in me. Not Ethan's brother, not the responsible one, just Michael. She asked questions about my work, my dreams, even my childhood. I didn't tell her everything, of course, but enough to let her see I hadn't had it easy. Instead of pity, she admired the fight in me. Our relationship grew fast. Dinners after work turned into weekends together, and before long, I was spending more time at her apartment in Manhattan than in my cramped studio. Laura had this way of making me believe I was worthy of love, of partnership. When she looked at me, I didn't feel invisible anymore. We married in 2015, a small ceremony with a few friends and some distant relatives. My parents came, but their presence was cold, obligatory. Ethan skipped it entirely, claiming he was too busy with another one of his doomed business ventures. For once, I didn't care. Looking into Laura's eyes as we said our vows, I thought, this is my family now. Together, we built a life in Connecticut, a modest home with a little yard, just far enough from the city to breathe. For a while, it felt like everything I had dreamed of as a boy had finally come true. We cooked dinner together, planned vacations we couldn't always afford, laughed at dumb TV shows late into the night. I let myself believe I had outrun the past, that Ethan, my parents, all the scars of my childhood, they no longer mattered. I had my wife, my career, my own version of happiness. But illusions are fragile things, and mine was about to shatter in a way I could never have prepared for. It started small, so small that I almost convinced myself I was imagining it. Ethan called me one night, his voice dripping with that familiar tone of entitlement I'd known my whole life. He was going through a rough patch. His latest business had failed, and he had nowhere to go. My first instinct was to hang up, but Laura, always the compassionate one, urged me to help. "He's still your brother, Michael. Maybe this is your chance to mend things." Against every instinct, I agreed. Ethan moved into our guest room a week later. At first, I tried to see it as an opportunity, a chance to finally reset our relationship. But almost immediately, the old patterns returned. He didn't help with bills, didn't clean, didn't even say thank you. He lounged around during the day, eating our food, playing video games, sleeping until noon. I told myself it was temporary. But what unsettled me most wasn't his laziness. It was how often I found him lingering around Laura. He'd hang in the kitchen while she cooked, cracking jokes that made her laugh in a way that cut me. I caught him brushing past her too closely, holding her gaze a second too long. When I confronted him, he smirked. "Relax, man. Don't be so uptight." I tried to shake it off, tried to trust my wife, trust that I was paranoid because of our history. But the signs grew harder to ignore. Laura started dressing up more, even when we weren't going anywhere. She seemed distracted during our conversations, her phone buzzing late at night. When I asked, she snapped, "Not everything is about you, Michael." The night it happened is seared into my memory like a brand. I had worked late, but managed to come home earlier than expected. The house was unusually quiet. I headed upstairs, calling out for Laura. No answer. When I pushed open our bedroom door, the world stopped. Laura was in bed with Ethan. They froze, tangled in sheets that once belonged to me and Laura. Our bed, our sanctuary. For a second, my brain refused to process it. Ethan leaned back with that same smug expression I'd seen all my life, as if he had finally won some twisted competition I didn't know we were playing. Laura gasped, pulling the blanket over herself, tears streaming down her face. I can't describe the cocktail of emotions that hit me. Rage, nausea, grief so sharp it felt like my chest was being split open. I wanted to scream, to throw something, to hit Ethan until that smirk disappeared. But I just stood there, frozen, my hands shaking. Laura begged me to listen. "It was a mistake, Michael. It just happened. I still love you." The words felt like poison. Ethan, meanwhile, didn't apologize. He just shrugged, muttering, "You always thought you were better than me. Guess not." That night, I packed a bag and left. I drove aimlessly for hours. The image of them burned into my skull. I ended up parked in some deserted lot, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white, sobbing like a child. I thought I had outrun my past, but somehow Ethan had found a way to drag me back into hell, and this time he took everything I had built with him. I could have hidden it. I could have filed for divorce quietly, cut Ethan off, and buried the humiliation deep inside. But something in me snapped that night. Years of being dismissed, ignored, blamed, it all boiled over. This time, I wasn't going to swallow it. Thanksgiving came a few weeks later. My parents insisted I come home to Dallas, saying it would be good for the family. I almost refused, but then I realized I had been silenced my whole life. Not this time. When everyone gathered around the long oak dining table, I stood up. My heart pounded so hard I thought I might faint, but I forced the words out. I told them everything. How Ethan had moved in, how he repaid my kindness by sleeping with my wife, how I walked into my own bedroom and found them in my bed. The silence was suffocating. My mother's fork clattered against her plate. My father's face went red, veins bulging at his temples. For the first time in my life, he turned his anger not on me, but on Ethan. "What the hell is wrong with you?" he roared. Ethan tried to laugh it off, muttering excuses, but no one was buying it. My mother looked like she might be sick. The golden boy, the untouchable son, they finally saw what I had known all along. I didn't stay to watch the fallout. I left before dessert, my hands still trembling, but for the first time in decades, I felt something close to justice. Ethan wasn't their shining star anymore. He was exposed. The days after Thanksgiving blurred together. I moved into a small apartment in New Haven, Connecticut, the kind of place where the walls were thin and the neighbors didn't ask questions. My old house, the one Laura and I had built into a home, was suddenly a crime scene in my mind. Every corner was poisoned with memories I no longer wanted. I filed for divorce immediately. Laura tried to reach out at first. She called, she emailed, she even showed up at my office once, crying, swearing it had been a mistake. "It didn't mean anything, Michael. I don't want to lose you." But the words sounded empty, rehearsed, as if she was more afraid of losing stability than losing me. I told her coldly that whatever love I had for her died the night I opened that bedroom door. The divorce was ugly but swift. She fought for pieces of our life, furniture, savings, even the dog we had adopted together. I let her take more than she deserved because I didn't have the energy to fight. Every negotiation session felt like reopening a wound. I just wanted it over. Ethan, meanwhile, didn't apologize, not once. He sent me a text that simply said, "Guess we're even now." Even? For what? For existing? For daring to succeed without him? I didn't respond, but my silence was its own answer. My parents called, torn between damage control and denial. My mother begged me not to tell extended family, terrified of the gossip. My father asked me to try and move past it, as if betrayal of this scale could be brushed aside like one of Ethan's childish mistakes. I told them flat out, "You created this. You made him untouchable. Now you're living with the monster you built." Then I hung up. Work became my anchor. I buried myself in spreadsheets, late nights at the office, endless projects. Colleagues thought I was ambitious, driven. In truth, I was just running. From loneliness, from heartbreak, from the echo of Ethan's smirk burned into my memory. Yet, even in the rubble, a strange kind of clarity emerged. For the first time, I didn't feel tethered to anyone else's expectations. No more pretending to be the dutiful son, the forgiving brother, the loyal husband. I was free in the harshest possible way. But freedom is a lonely thing. Some nights I sat in that empty apartment, staring at the ceiling, wondering if starting over at 33 was too late. Still, I knew one thing. I had survived worse, and if I had built my life once, I could do it again. It had been months since the divorce was finalized when I heard the knock on my apartment door. At first, I thought it was a delivery, but when I opened it, there he was, Ethan. He looked nothing like the smug, untouchable brother I had known. His clothes were wrinkled, his eyes bloodshot, his face pale and hollow. He said our parents had finally cut him off, that he was broke, his latest girlfriend had left him, and he had nowhere else to turn. For a moment, I just stared at him, flooded with memories. Him smashing my toys, him wrecking my car, him smirking in my bed beside my wife. And yet, he was still my brother, standing there in front of me, shivering in the cold like a lost child. "Please, Mike," he whispered, "just help me, just this once." My hand gripped the edge of the door so tightly my knuckles turned white. Part of me wanted to slam it shut, to finally end this cycle of manipulation and pain. But another part of me, the part that still ached for the brother I had never truly had, hesitated. Was this my chance to prove I was better than him? Better than all of them? Or was helping him just another chain, dragging me back into the same old misery? I didn't answer him that night. I closed the door gently, leaving him in the hallway, and stood with my back pressed against it, shaking. Even now, I don't know what the right choice is. Do I forgive? Do I help? Or do I finally walk away for good? All I know is that whatever I decide will define the rest of my life.